Is this thing on?
Are you ready, Matt?
You're listening to Box Office Bingers
with Matt Diaz and Ernesto Santos.
Good evening, folks. We have a wonderful evening's entertainment lined up for you.
We know each other. He's a friend from work.
Box Office Bingers.
And the only way that I know how to do it is to find you a bloody good dump.
He's my friend. I don't have friends. I got family. I can do this all day.
You know, if you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything.
And welcome back to another episode of Box Office Bingers. Matt, I am wickedly excited for this week's episode.
Wow.
I guess you could say. And look how festive you are. You're so classy. Look at you.
It's so classy. You mean dressing up in all black because it's freezing in Florida? It's like 40 degrees out right now, and you put on a hat just to be warm. It's really just for me to be warm. It has nothing to do with the movie we're talking about this week. This is the closest hat I could find, just laying around. So
okay.
Yeah, anyway.
I didn't know where you were going with that. But, you know.
Yes. Anyway, the movie in question, if you haven't figured out from the hat or from the title or from this awkward interaction we just had, is probably one of the more popular anticipated movies of the year, and we have two guests with us that will for sure defy gravity when we talk about this. That was awful, man. That was no way, shape, or form good. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Anyway, welcome back, Gia Doxey, to the show, and also welcome Daveed Ben-Arie back, or for the first time onto the show. How are you guys doing today?
Doing great, thank God.
Doing wickedly well.
Aha!
Thank you so much for having us. And I'm so honored to be back and for Daveed to be on here for the first time because you both are the best. And congrats on 5 years. So exciting.
Honored to be walking the hallowed halls and vine-draped walls of Box Office Bingers.
Ah, there you go. There you go.
There it is. See, that's way better than whatever I just did.
No,
It's amazing.
I do. I just have gotten back.
I love it. It's great.
It's the best part for movies.
It's been so long since we've had you on the show. I think we were just talking right before we started recording that it was 4 years since you've been on the show, which is insane to think about.
It is. It's not. It's cruel. Why torture?
But you've also been busy. You and Daveed, you guys run the Silhouettes JB podcast. How is that?
Yeah, it's great. Oh, there's the logo.
Oh,
Amazing.
thank you.
Yeah.
We have a lot to update you on with the pod, for sure.
Yeah, so just so everyone knows, it's a podcast all about Jersey boys. Like, that's it. And it's very niche, and we have over 70 episodes, and we've talked to some amazing actors, Tony Award winning, Tony Award nominated actors, creative team, musicians, and cool thing, party.
Yeah. Well, also from Broadway, the national tour, international tours and productions, and also, what was I going to say? I'm blanking.
The party.
Yes. Okay. So, there's a lot of Wicked and Jersey Boys crossover, which we'll talk to you about. And of course, we interview people from the movie as well. So, of course, you are here to talk about movies. And if you like the Jersey Boys movie that came out 10 years ago already, like this year, you can check it out there too. But a big thing that we've done, so we basically have been on hiatus since earlier winter this year. Mm-hmm. But for about a year in the making, we were planning, it was a Jersey Boys anniversary party of their La Jolla production. So if you're unfamiliar, a lot of Broadway shows, before they come to Broadway, they have an out-of-town tryout. And this was at the La Jolla Playhouse in 2004. And we had that anniversary party for that pre-Broadway show. It's again a very niche thing, but we had Rick Ellis was there, the co-writer of the show. His co-writer Marshall Brickman, who also co-wrote Annie Hall and Manhattan, and he's a legend. And he also was the head writer at the Tonight Show during Johnny Carson, and he worked on the Dick Cavett show.
He created Karnak.
Yeah.
Well,
It's amazing.
So
and
he wasn't there, but he just passed away.
He just passed away on Friday. So huge. But we love Marshall, and so many other things. Look him up. He's seriously like such an underrated player in American pop culture. And so back to the party, we had Rick Ellis there. The director Des McAnuff was there. We had J. Robert Spencer, who played the original Nick Massey. All of these amazing people from all walks of Jersey Boys got to have a little reunion, and we have to help with that party. Our friend Pam Singer was the lead, and then we had other friends in the committee that we worked on it with. But that was our big moment for the year, and it was thanks to the pod because we made all the connections.
Frankie Valli's daughter was there. Tommy DeVito's daughter was there. Also, we had actual Four Seasons family.
Yeah. There. It was pretty insane. And
That's
incredible. Crazy. Yeah.
I know. And with Wicked, so Olivia Valli, she is Frankie Valli's granddaughter, and this is pretty cool. So we interviewed her back in 2020, and she was coming off of the Wicked national tour where she was an understudy for Elphaba.
I saw her in the ensemble.
Yeah, in
Didn't
Tampa.
see her play Elphaba. But I saw her in the ensemble.
Pretty cool. And so again, think 2020 time, like a little before pre-COVID. In New York City, you would have billboards of Wicked and Jersey Boys next to each other, which was pretty cool. And
Makes sense.
and Olivia's mom, Toni Valli, said, she's like, you know what, you were in Wicked, and next you're going to be in Jersey Boys. And wouldn't you know it, in I think I want to mess up the dates, but I think it was like 2018, 2019, definitely 2019. She played her grandmother in Jersey Boys because it was based off like Frankie Valli's wife was based off of her grandmother, so she got to play her off Broadway in Jersey Boys. And then after COVID, she got the lead in the Pretty Woman national tour. She got to originate the tour version of Vivian, which is amazing. And then she just wrapped being the principal Elphaba on tour.
That's incredible.
It's a really, really cool Wicked connection. And we live in Astoria in Queens, New York, and we actually met someone who was a dresser, right?
He is, yeah. He lives right down the street. He's a dresser
on Broadway.
In
so
Wicked.
It's amazing. They're
Plus,
everywhere.
Sebastian Arcelus, who was in House of Cards and Madam Secretary, also in Jersey Boys, also played Fiyero in Wicked. Nicholas Dramard, who was
our dear friend and our accountant.
He was Fiyero, and he was Chistery, the head monkey. And what people don't know is Chistery, he has like a head thing. If you've ever seen the tour or the Broadway show or anything, the monkeys have like special things, prosthetics, and they don't fit anyone else's head, so you get to keep it. So we saw his Chistery head in him and his wife's house in Jersey City, and it's pretty sick. Yeah.
I mean, all of these sounds like amazing stories, and Ernesto and I have talked about this multiple times, especially after just reminiscing about our 5 years a few episodes ago. And it's crazy what a podcast can do. Like, just because we started one and we were able to build all these different connections, and it sounds like the Silhouettes JB podcast has given you the opportunity, almost like an avenue for like to share this love you guys have for Jersey Boys. So it's kind of awesome to hear all these stories, and that the podcast was able to kind of give you that bridge between, just a few years ago, you weren't doing any of these things and you probably didn't know most of these names. You knew about them. You didn't like talk to them. And now you have a chance to talk to them. And funny enough, Gia, we share one guest onto the show. A few years back, we had Corey Giacomo on the show.
Wow. And forgot about that.
And I went to high school with him, and it was like kind of one of those things out of the blue that I reached out to him and say, "Hey, I have a podcast. It's about movies. Would you be interested?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm so glad you reached out. Absolutely." And then I talked about, "Hey, I know you were just on with Gia," and it was kind of just funny that we also have a connection there between bringing people together through the podcast. So it's kind of really awesome to hear. But again, I want you to tell people where you can find the podcast, where can they listen or watch, or where can they find you guys?
Yeah, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts is not a thing anymore, so won't find us there anymore.
Yeah, wherever you listen to
Instagram,
podcasts, yeah.
Instagram, Facebook,
Yeah,
social media.
Definitely Instagram. That's the best place. You can find us and contact us. It's Silhouettes JB Podcast _ and there's a reason for the underscore. If you're curious, give us a message.
One of those give people
ominous.
to reach out to you for the information. I love it. That's a really good tactic. All right, but before we dive into Wicked, I kind of want to ask you guys about the love of Broadway. Obviously, you guys made a podcast about Jersey Boys, and I reached out to you just because we're doing Wicked, and it's probably one of the biggest movies of the year, as well as one of the biggest Broadway productions potentially of all time. It's still on Broadway after 20 something years. So like what is the love that you have for Broadway or for musicals or just plays or live entertainment that is like, I feel like that is what you guys are like. When I spoke to you guys last year is actually the first time I actually saw Wicked on Broadway. And I saw you guys, and we had dinner that one night, and it seems like that was like you guys are on top of everything that's going on in live entertainment, at least on Broadway.
Yes, well, Daveed should go first.
No, you would but I think there's a couple things. Like it's the first thing. I think people love sports, people love movies, people will like know every single stat of like, oh, who, like, people can tell you the lineup of the New York Jets in like the 1995. They can tell you the lineup. They can tell you how many sacks, insert name of linebacker here or whatever, had in 2005, but for us others who don't get down with the sports or like, it's indescribable. I can't tell you. They say you just got bit by the bug. That's it. Like, I couldn't tell you why. Like, you could qualify it. You could say like the thrill of watching live. People say like, and like there's only one take. The thrill of that and these amazing voices and connecting. With people performing right in front of you. I couldn't tell you why. I couldn't tell you why. It's something that's indescribable. I don't know. I've never actually really thought about it. Now that I'm thinking about it, I couldn't tell you why. It's just really, really special.
Yes, and Daveed seriously is a Broadway encyclopedia. I am still a novice compared to Daveed. He can tell you. He always tells a story how. Do you want to tell him about it?
Sure. So I was doing summer camp in Miami. I was the kind of like assistant director of this musical theater summer camp at a JCC in North Miami Beach, and all the counselors and our artistic director of the theater, we were talking after camp one day, and we're talking about the 1999 revival of Annie Get Your Gun, which starred Tom Wopat as Frank Butler, and it starred originally Bernadette Peters as Annie Oakley, who then was replaced by Reba. But so like the nerd,
like the Reba,
Reba McEntire.
Yeah,
she played Annie Oakley on Broadway, and new book by Peter Stone, really updated orchestrations, and I'm thinking like I'm always thinking, like Bernadette Peters left, Reba and I'm saying all this out loud, like Bernadette Peters left, Reba came in, but did Reba close the show? Or did Bernadette Peters come back in? Did like someone else take over and then Bernadette and then the artistic director of the theater is like, Daveed, who cares? And I never get like shocked to the point where I don't know what to say next ever. But I was just like, I don't know. I care. Yeah. So
it's the history. And yeah, I know. Well, it was so mean, and I think we've all been there with things that we love to nerd out about. And for me, well, I'll tell you what. For me, like, so
she's the movie encyclopedia.
Well, with these guys. At least I feel like I used to be, but everything's just so after COVID, everything just kind of like shifted. But for me with Broadway. But again, like movies were my first love, absolutely. But movie musicals in particular, of course, like I fell in love with, and honestly, everybody has, whether they want to admit it or not. And because The Wizard of Oz is a musical.
It is.
Do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, 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 it is.
But like, so Wizard of Oz, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, all of those classics that you grew up with as a kid, even Disney movies, Mary Poppins, the regular animated movies. To me, those are all musicals.
Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is a musical.
I think it's a musical. I think it's.
Well, there's no song.
Charlie or Willy Wonka. Willy Wonka is definitely a musical.
Well,
but the one with Johnny Depp isn't a musical.
What do you mean? There's music. There's so many songs.
Not in the same sense. Not in the same sense as the original. I see what he means.
They still have the Oompa Loompa songs. That's true. But like in the original, there's Candyman. There's also Pure Imagination.
Yes.
And the Oompa Loompa songs and other.
What about the Augustus Gloop song in Charlie? Well, this is a separate conversation.
That's still an Oompa Loompa song.
That's a separate podcast. That's a debate within itself.
No, I think like there has to be more than like six songs.
That's a magic question because people think of it like there's different categories for it and different classifications.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm sorry.
No, sorry.
Well, but to me, anyway, like of course, I fell in love with movie musicals, and then we had Hairspray and like more recent memory, Greatest Showman, movies like that, which of course I love.
La La Land.
But with Broadway in particular, I didn't see my first live show until honestly like a high school production that I saw when I was a freshman. Yeah, when I was a freshman in high school. And I fell in love with it there. And I think the reason is, whether it's a straight play or a musical, of course there's like the live element, like Daveed was saying. But it's also just when you see talent or like real talent that really like hits you, or the music that just gives you goosebumps. Wicked, major prime example. Whether it's even from a cast recording that you listen to if you can't afford to go to the theater, or your family doesn't take you to go to the theater,
or a bootleg.
It's just wanting to get into the lore and actually have an experience in general, because and especially for us living in New York now, we're I don't want to say we're becoming snobs, but we try to see everything. But I'll tell you what, a lot of shows are not that great right now.
It's the commercialization of the business.
Yeah, and
you gotta make money.
The story itself is just weird, and for me, like I will always say, like, yes, escapism is a huge part of it, and I think it is for everyone, whether they want to see more intellectual or not. I think it's a whole part of it. And then, but with musicals on Broadway, like the music, and Stephen Schwartz said this, who wrote, of course, the music for Wicked. Like, you sing what you're afraid to say or what you can't say, like in a regular conversation. So in
That's
Defying
what a good
Gravity,
musical will do.
Exactly, and it is meant to actually move the story
and they
forward.
won't just repeat what you just said in the scene,
right?
Which is what a lot of contemporary musicals. That's the trap.
Absolutely, yes. And it's not as grand as Wicked is. And Defying Gravity is a great example where. And so we can get if you want to talk more about like the characterization, but like Glinda, if you think Glinda is a bitch, I'm with you.
Okay, so
but like she's trying, like you see her flip flopping, and you don't know what she wants, and they're saying like Glinda's like I hope you're happy. Basically like you ruined your cause forever. And then she's like, yeah, well, you're just trying to like get your way and be ambitious, and that's on you. Like it's hard to say that to someone's face, but in song you can't.
It like if that scene in a contemporary play, that scene, if Wicked was actually set in 2 parts on stage, that scene would still be at the end, and they would be yelling at each other. Right. Like they would be like. It would like the stage, like everything would be completely silent. No one else would be on stage. Like basically just how it is now, but it's like much more. It's much more.
It's harder to empathize if it's not sung, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good point to kind of as we dive into our Wicked conversation. I think that's a good point to, like, what we can't say, we sing, and if the song's good, it defied gravity. And that's basically how I take it. But yeah, let's talk about the movie in question since we're already diving into it. We forgot to, or we didn't really go into who's making it, starring, all that stuff. So obviously we're talking about Wicked, stars Cynthia Erivo Ariana Grande, Jonathan Bailey, Michelle Yeoh, Jeff Goldblum, Ethan Slater, Marissa Bode, and Peter Dinklage. It's directed by Jon M who also directed Crazy Rich Asians and In the Heights, both great movies. And I think his path so far has been crazy because one of his first movies he's ever did was Step Up 2, and then he did Step Up 3, and then he dived into kind of unconventionally outside of his norm is G.I. Joe Retaliation and Now You See Me 2, which are both movies that, you think of the director and is definitely not in his wheelhouse. Shortly after that, he came out with Gem and the Holograms, and that was kind of panned very negatively to him. And then all of a sudden, he came out with Crazy Witch Asians, gave out this different energy about him and his different directing style, probably a movie he actually wanted to make. And then followed by In the Heights, which was absolutely amazing. And I'm sure In the Heights was what got him to Wicked, which might be his magnum opus or whatever we call it. Probably his biggest, highest achievement he's done so far. The movie's also written by Donna Fox, who wrote Cruella, How to Be Single, Couples Retreat, and What Happens in Vegas. It was also written by Winnie Halsman, who wrote the Wicked musical book. And for those who don't know, Wicked is adapted by Gregory Maguire, who wrote the 2005 novel Wicked: The Life and Times of the Wicked Witch of the West. So a lot of history here. Obviously, a lot of this is tied from The Wizard of Oz, which we'll dive into a little bit later. But Ernesto, I want to toss it over to you first before we dive into it. I know you are a huge Wicked fan. When did you first see Wicked? And how does this translate over, all this time now?
The only two times I've seen it twice, both touring when it came to Orlando. I think the first time I saw it must have been somewhere between 2008 and 2010, and then the second time I saw with my wife in, I think it was 2013 because she was pregnant with my son Edward. So, yeah, I mean, I've loved the show. I've been listening to the original Broadway cast recording for many, many years. Even before the movie, I had to tell myself, I said, all right, I'm not going to listen to the Broadway recording because I don't want to sit in the theater comparing both the Broadway recording to the movie recording. And then just before we get into it, I will say that just overall, I like the music is different, but they almost complement each other. I still am very partial to the Broadway recording, but I think certain songs play out better in the movie. I think What Is This Feeling plays out better as a better moment in the movie than it does in the show. Still a big moment in the production itself, but I feel like we're more intimate, we're more engaged with it in the movie just because we're going back. You're really going back and forth between all the classrooms in their room and kind of the pettiness back and forth with them, and then you really get up and close and personal with that choreography they have in the I guess it's the courtyard or wherever that one you're kind of seeing all over online now. I just really love, overall, I love the grandness of the story. And I just think it's really interesting. We were talking about The Wizard of Oz, just how, why is it that we are so captivated by the story of Wizard of Oz? The Wizard of Oz, a musical, when it came out, was a big movie. This movie is going to be more than likely going to be the biggest movie of the year, leading up for the Part 2 to be the biggest movie of the year. And just side note, I think Part 2 is probably going to be as good as this one is. I think the Part 2 is going to be even better.
And it's crazy to think about that too, that The Wizard of Oz was, and I was watching a breakdown video, and they're saying that The Wizard of Oz was based off of a book that was in 1902, I believe. I could be wrong with the date. And then that was adapted into a stage production, and then it became a movie in the 1930s. And then now we're getting a full circle moment because Wicked was then first in 2005 was a book, later on a very successful stage production, and then now we have a movie that's equally as probably as popular as both the book and the movie. And so it's crazy to see that after over 100 years, if my math is correct, we're still captivated by this story of the Wizard of Oz or something around it. And I remember, and I feel like I'm completely late to the game, is that I first saw Wicked just last year. I never listened to the music. And Ernesto already knows I refuse to listen to the music if I haven't seen the play. I can't do it. I can't do it. I need to see the context of where the music is coming from. I need to see it. And I will wait as long as I can before I get there. And I wanted to see it here in Orlando, but I missed it. But I feel like I had, it was better that I saw it on Broadway rather than seeing it in the touring production. Nothing wrong with the touring. It's just is something different when you see something on Broadway in New York rather than you seeing the tour of it. But yeah, I remember just being fully captivated into the story and like just seeing the grand nature of it. And so then when you go into the movie, you're like, can they capture that? And I think they absolutely did that 100%. And it was weird because I had this feeling.
What is this feeling?
Yeah.
And I was trying to figure out, like, why do I feel like this movie feels different than the other musicals that's been adapted into screen? Why does this feel so different? I think the best way that I can make it make sense in my head was that there are other movies that have done this before. Even Dear Evan Hansen is a good example. You have even In the Heights. And I feel like you have these directors and you have these studios who wanted to make a movie adaptation of the Broadway musical. And I feel like with Wicked, though, they put Broadway on the big screen. And I feel like that is the biggest difference that is probably the thing that makes sense in my head. That's what I feel like. This is the reason why Wicked feels so different, because when I'm listening to the soundtrack, it feels like this should be on Broadway. And it is.
Yeah.
You know what it is? Because they didn't cast Tom Cruise as the wizard. And they didn't cast, Bruce Willis as Fiyero, They cast people who, one, had either a really serious theater background or a really, I don't know, I feel like Michelle Yeoh is the odd one out here, but Ariana Grande started in 13 the musical on Broadway. Cynthia Erivo, Tony Award winner, I'm pretty sure, at least nominee for The Color Purple when she played Celie. I'm pretty sure she won the Tony, but either she won it or she was nominated for it. Definitely nominated, but Jeff Goldblum. Jeff Goldblum and Ariana Grande have a picture in front of the stage door of the Schubert Theater when he was in The Pillow Man.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Ethan Slater. I can't believe he hasn't played Bach yet in Wicked, and on stage. So it's just they really cared about it, and I think that all starts with John Chu and Mark Platt, who produced both the movie and the original stage musical.
Right. Well, if I may, I have a theory too. Well, with Mark Platt, we learned this watching the Peacock. Was on Peacock. It was like the Wicked documentary.
Yeah, I saw it too.
Yeah. So Mark wanted to make it a movie in the 90s, and then Stephen Schwartz was like, "No, you should really make it a stage production. I think I know how I can do this," and then it worked out. And I think, but then as far as getting it finally to the big screen, it took years. Here's the difference. I think they took the time. It took almost 8 years for it to actually happen, because there's a really cool meme that has because the main thing that happens with movie musicals, I think, is this adaptation is in talks, and it could be in talks for 5 years.
She hates that.
And
Absolutely.
the changes, the production company changes, no one's on the same page. And I think when they landed on Jon, it was really a wonderful choice. And then and they took their time with the casting, like Daveed was saying. Because even with Dear Evan Hansen, in my opinion, and even with Jersey Boys, they're rushing them. Everything right now is just trying to push all this content out. And with The Wizard of Oz, it's stuff like this does take the test of time. And you're not going to mess with The Wizard of Oz. This is Universal Studios. it's a prequel. Like, you're learning about the Wicked Witch of the West, one of the most like well-known American characters. Like, and you have to have a big ass budget for this. Like 9 million tulips they built around the set in London. You know, it's like that is what it takes. And with Jennifer Aniston, for example, like it was too quick. Like, however you feel about the casting, like whatever. And they used whatever sets. And like the Mean Girls adaptation, which I think was an abomination, honestly.
It was awful.
I didn't see it.
Like, and I loved Tina Fey, but it just was not executed well. And I think because they're just rushing, but they didn't rush with this.
And I think specifically also, they didn't cut one song from this movie.
Right.
Yes.
Anyone who says this song doesn't work on screen, like if John Chu can do it with Wicked, one of the biggest musicals ever, like and really the only context change of a song was something bad, because in the stage musical, he sings it with Elphaba in the classroom. So if you've if your viewers have watched the movie or if they've seen the stage production, Dr. Dillamond, played by Peter Dinklage, in full goat. They went full animal.
Full goat.
Yeah.
Hashtag full goat.
Hashtag full goat. Avengers. Hashtag full goat. In goat. So usually at the end of that scene, after he sees the animal should be seen, not heard on the chalkboard, everyone leaves. He kicks everyone out, and Elphaba has lunch with him. She shares her lunch with him, and she unwraps her sandwich, and he starts eating the paper. Really funny. And then they both sing the song together, and it's a little bit longer, but to change the context, the way they did it in the movie, where they made it a meeting of animals, trying to save themselves, and changing that context and having Elphaba also, like seeing her, there's another layer that John Chu added, another layer of you seeing Elphaba care for the animals, because you don't see it as much in the stage production. So adding that context, that was really the only major, as far as I know, this structural change to the show, besides for the added scenes, which were amazing.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing. A good movie adaptation is you add and you don't subtract.
Correct.
And
Correct. I think just to add off what Daveed was saying, the only other thing I thought they added is in Dancing Through Life, when he's talking about the Ozdas Ballroom in the show, he goes, "What's the swankiest place in town?" Whereas thank you. Well, he says something different in the movie. I don't remember exactly what he says, but when you go to the actual ballroom, you have all the animals who are. It's like, I think they mentioned it's like the last ballroom where the animals can still perform, or something to that effect.
Right.
It's kind of almost like a speakeasy kind of thing.
Yeah, it definitely felt like a speakeasy.
It's like almost underwater. It was really, really cool.
Yeah.
And like
but apparently everyone knew about it. Like everyone knew about this dance that was happening, and like they were all going. Don't tell nobody. Don't tell nobody. But we all know about it.
They were getting ready for the.
I missed that. Was that something that they said in the movie? Like, don't tell anyone about it.
No. I was just projecting. I was just saying that like it felt like a speakeasy, because they're like, hey, but it almost felt like don't tell anybody, but everyone knew that there was a party.
I feel like somebody in the movie did say that they weren't supposed to go there. Maybe was it Bach or was that in the show? I can't remember.
It was, well, was that when Bo and Yang was in the room and they were trying to figure out they should invite Elphaba or not, and then they found the hat.
Yeah, and I mean. Yeah, maybe they might have said something there, but I'm not entirely sure. But either way, I think it's safe to say that upon just watching the movie, you having all the positive press around it, Wicked has become a phenomenon. And what's crazy about
the show on Broadway right now, you can't.
Of course,
I don't. That makes complete sense to me. And also, side note, I just realized, I don't know why it took me this long. We've been recording for 30 minutes now. I have no idea you were wearing a Wicked jacket.
Yeah, she's got a Wicked shirt on too.
And I see the Wicked shirt on too. Yeah, I saw because you were. Yeah.
I got us matching Wicked shirts from Old Navy from their partnership that they're doing. But I got this. It's a really cool track jacket that I got on the tour.
It's beautiful.
I went to Orlando. Thank you. I went to Orlando in 2017 to see the Queen Jessica Voss perform as Elphaba, but she was not doing Sunday matinees. So
Classic.
but I saw Emily Schultheis play Elphaba, and Olivia Valli, then going by Olivia Pulci. She was in the ensemble. And cool thing, Andy Mientus, who was in the TV show Smash, which is now becoming a Broadway musical as well, written by Rick Ellis, who wrote Jersey Boys. He was playing Bach on the tour. That was pretty cool. Completely unrelated, but with celebrity, so that's pretty cool.
Oh yeah, all the lore.
But interesting thing, Lynn Frank Baum, who wrote all the original Oz novels, LFB, Elphaba.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Just so fun.
Yeah, it's so to Gia's point, the attention of detail. I mean, even back then, have the clever wordplay on the character of Elphaba, but like the attention to detail in this movie is pretty outstanding when you think about it. There are moments in this movie where I feel like that I wasn't into the hype as everyone was saying it was. Like, it would feel like it was overhyped for me by the time I got to watch the movie. But that has nothing to knock on the movie. That's just me going into the experience. I saw it a week later. I saw all the positive stuff about it. So it was like the anticipation was here, and then I'm watching it. It's like, oh no, it's a good movie. I wouldn't say it's through the roof, but it's pretty solid. But the thing that I was able to appreciate the most was like, when this movie starts, you are transported into the wonderful world of Oz, and like it's crazy to see the level of detail that they put into this movie. All these sets are practical, so like these actors were living in these environments, having a lot of stuff to play with. Sorry, say it again.
Right, it wasn't just green screen.
Yeah.
Exactly. It wasn't just green screen. Like, to your point, 9 million tulips. It said it took them 20 weeks to build the sets for this, and you see that. The fact Jeff Goldblum has a giant bronze head of himself. Yeah. They made that. They made the train probably go about not even half a mile up the road.
It's a real 60-ton train that moves on tracks.
It's incredible, the level of detail. This movie isn't nominated for at least production.
Oh, it has to be. Absolutely.
It has to.
And this is a movie that you would almost assume could be mostly CGI, just because of the world you're being transported in. I mean, when it's very little of it is either on blue or green screen. I mean, Cynthia Erivo literally flew in the sky while singing Defying Gravity. I mean, that is incredible. And I think her doing her own stunts, like, there's a bunch of videos on social media of her recording Defying Gravity, literally being flown in the air. And I think that's just a testament to just Broadway actors in general, because they are their own stunt performers. I mean, how many times did Idina Menzel get lifted into the sky? I think I read today that during her final performance, when she melts, she actually fell and like cracked her rib or something like.
Yes, she had to go to the
hospital.
They had to cut open her dress.
Oh wow!
This like $20,000 dress created by Susan Hilferty. And she goes into the hospital. She couldn't even play her official final performance. She came on stage in a tracksuit.
Yeah.
And Stephanie J. Block, married to Sebastian Arcellis, former Fierro and former Bob Gaudio in Jersey Boys. She was playing because she was the standby.
See, and how but like that, to me, that's just a testament. Like, and I haven't seen Mary Poppins, but I heard Bert like climbs up the proscenium wall and like back. Like that's incredible. Somebody has to do that. Somebody has to strap a harness in. Gail will go, all right, I hope I don't die today, and go walk up the wall of this building and see what happens. Like, it's incredible.
A wicked no-fly show.
What was that?
Have you ever heard of a no-fly show at Wicked? No. So a no-fly show is when Elphaba just doesn't go up. She like the mechanisms, whatever
not working.
The word is, technology doesn't work. So Manuel Herrera, the original Chistery on Broadway, the original Monkey, I think he either told the story first or it was his idea. The first time that ever happened, he like fell down to the ground, and they were like, and then everyone followed him, and they were all laying down on the ground looking up at her because she was going up.
That works.
They had a tree.
It's like, I think there was this kind of like, there's this story. There's this Broadway actress. She was doing Saturday Night Fever, and she had to sing this really big note, but she couldn't sing it one night. So one night she just pointed up when she got to the note, and people started clapping like she actually sang it. She like tricked them. So like they tell the story of this.
Isn't that unbelievable? It's like, it's so
yeah. And so they created this illusion, and I don't think anyone knew the wiser, because so many people who see Wicked are not people who live in New York seeing it 50 times. It's tourists who have no clue. So, and then 5 years later when they see it again, and they're like, oh,
she's flying now.
And then, so,
she really defied gravity this time. Good for her.
And so there was one more. So when Shoshana Bean was playing Elphaba, I don't know if this is like actually, it's like a theater urban legend. So the stage at the George Gershwin Theater where Wicked is currently playing is very raked. Very raked. And when in Elphaba's first entrance after Dear Old Shiz, or right before Dear Old Shiz starts, when she walks in, when she runs in, and legend has it, she ran in and she fell right into the orchestra pit.
Oh gosh.
Crazy.
I mean, those are actually really funny stories. But I mean, to the point of like the actors that most of them, even Nessa, played by Marissa Bode, who was in the wheelchair, she wanted to do her own stunts as well.
Right.
Absolutely.
And so it's crazy that even the actors, I feel like the actors knew what they signed up for. It's like, oh well, we have to kind of like, oh, we're breathing rare air here, that we cannot kind of screw this up, because this is going to be like, this means so much to a lot of people. And I think everybody who was involved with the movie, the actors, the directors, the writers, the people who are setting the stage, even the music, I think everyone understood the assignment of like, this needs to be special and epic. I mean, I think they were able to do a lot of things that, you can't really do on a stage play. And I think that I was able to translate very well when you saw some of those scenes. It's like, obviously in the very first moment of the movie, we see Glinda, coming down in her bubble, and she's like, I think somebody asked her, after the whole mourn for the wicked, or we don't mourn for the wicked, I think after that somebody in one of the Munchkins asked her, were you friends with her, and she said yes. And I think they showed a flashback of all those, like, some key moments that she probably reflects, and you can't show that in the stage performance, but you can see that in a movie, and you can feel that question kind of resonated with her. And then it cuts back, and then we see now the story of Wicked unfolding as the question was being asked. And like, I think it's those details that, like, to your point, you mentioned earlier, that like they were able to add to what everyone loves about Wicked instead of subtract what people. Just because it's a 2-hour movie, we have to like put everything inside. And I think Jon M realized that when, I remember, Ernesto, we were talking about this years ago, when first we found out that Jon M was going to be directing the movie, and then shortly after he said, this movie's now going to be in 2 parts because it only feels right to, for the fans who love the musical. We just couldn't squeeze everything in the movie. We had to split it into 2 parts. And I think it was then when, and even that early on, you realize how dedication he was to making sure that he put out the best thing possible. And I think another big thing that surprised me a lot in this movie was Ariana Grande's performance as Glinda.
Amazing.
It to me, when you first heard the announcement, I remember, I think we talked about it. It's like Cynthia Erivo playing Elphaba. I was like, oh, that checks out, right? That one I was 100% down for. And then you said, but Ariana Grande, she's playing Glinda. And I was like, Ariana Grande, I don't know about that. I was like, I mean, she can sing. She's a great
boy,
singer.
did she
but,
tell
like,
everybody
I
to
mean,
hold my beer.
No kidding. Like literally
3 years, like having everyone speculate like crazy, and you guys aren't alone. Like we were the same way, and even when the teaser and the trailers came out, I was like, I really don't know how to feel about this, and just being really, just really cynical about it. But she's from my hometown, and she brought her 99-year-old Nona to go see the movie with her, Ethan Slater, and her brother Frankie, and I have so much respect for her. And I think, and the thing is, I never underestimated her because I knew, I was excited about her casting. I was. But also
she's a theater girl.
Exactly.
Theater girl at heart.
Yeah, and this has been her dream role. Like you're not gonna mess it up. And all the training she did to get her operatic voice, like she's like every time she opens her mouth, I cry. Like I can't. And but the thing is, and the main thing about her performance is everyone's really excited about the comedy element of it. She was on Nickelodeon. Like she's always been a strong comedic
She doesn't
actor.
even need to bat a. Can we curse?
Yes,
can we
you can curse.
Yeah, you can curse.
She doesn't even need to bat a fucking eye.
It's true. She's amazing. And another thing.
I like that was the first time you felt the need to curse. Is like we've been doing this for about 45 minutes. Like, but this is the one. Can I say the word fuck on this show? I really gotta say it. Right
She
now.
deserves for me to emphasize the word fuck.
Deserves this is
I love it. I love it.
I know. Yeah, she's fucking amazing. But what also was interesting for me with the casting was the age, because everyone's so obsessed. Okay, but like, oh, but they're supposed to be this age, so they should be cast as this. Cynthia's 37, and Ariana's 31. Again, they got casted 3 years ago, but that wasn't even a thought in the casting. So that was really, I was really happy about that.
Suspend your disbelief, you know, like 30-year-olds have been playing high schoolers. Well, this is college technically. But 30-year-olds have been playing younger people for years, and no one's even batted an eye, you know. So
yeah, but it's been more of a conversation over the past few years. So I'm just happy that wasn't even an issue.
Yeah.
And
I mean, to be fair, Ben Platt did come back to play, right? Ben
Yes,
Platt, right?
unnecessary.
For Dear Evan Hansen, and that was a topic of conversation for a while. That he came back to play a high school.
And then they de-aged him.
I think
But they changed him, and it didn't.
No,
work.
it's
It didn't
not
work
great.
For the movie.
they really, if we're talking about, I think they really fucked him over with that. I think he deserved that role. I saw him do it on Broadway.
I agree.
No one else could have done it except for him.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I just like, they really fucked him with that makeup and with whatever they did in effect to him, because he didn't need it. He was so.
Yeah, I totally agree. When it comes to movie adaptations, we're on the team where if you originated the role, you deserve to play it in the movie.
Right of first refusal, bitch.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like offer only, give it to the lead, like it's fine. Yeah, so that's how we feel about it. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was saying, just going back to Ariana Grande though, like I think for me they were like I was still skeptical, even though a lot of people were talking, you know, praising her performance. But when she was singing, first of all, when she opens, like she comes out of the bubble and she's just singing like the operatic voice that she was, I was like, oh damn, like I haven't heard her sing like that ever. Yeah. But then when she's singing "Don't Mourn for the Wicked," her face, if you really pay attention to her face, is like you can tell she does not want to sing that song right now. Like to me, it felt to me. Go ahead.
Well, so I'm sorry.
Did you mean her character?
Yeah.
Or her?
What? Her character.
Like in the moment.
So, well, just in the moment. Like, first of all, I never saw Ariana Grande on the screen. I'll just say that. I was like, I just never saw her on the screen. That was Glenda on the screen. Like, I think there was some people were saying, oh, you know, this is Ariana Grande playing Glenda. No, she transformed herself into the role. And I feel like there was two moments of the movie where I feel like that changed my opinion. One was the very beginning where like she's singing that song and like I can see it in her face is like what like this emotion as she's kind of singing the song. And then when Popular comes in, we get a completely different side of her. And this is kooky, wacky song that it is. But I was like, I'm watching her perform this song and I'm literally sitting there is like, this woman's going to win an Oscar.
Yep.
That was an incredible performance. Like she nailed it. And so like to me, like if it was anything that came out of this movie was that Ariana Grande dedicated to the role, and it shows all over this movie.
she literally. I've read a bunch of articles. Like this has been a literal dream role for her. There's a picture of her and Kristen Chenoweth when she's 10 years old, when she was on Broadway, and she saying that she wanted to play Glinda. She like talk about like vision boarding and actualizing your dreams. Like she literally did that shit. But you were so right. You were saying the moments that really changed it. Like you just really felt engrossed with her, and I think Popular is 100% that moment. Like just when she's dancing around the room and she's interacting with Elphaba in that scene, like you forget, like you forget, like you really feel like you're in her room watching her, like just like in a little girl's room, like with all her stuff everywhere, like just really happy, and then the scene in there, and then the grandness of her dancing in the hallway, like that's something you don't get in the stage production. Like that's not there. It takes place in the room. I don't know. I thought she did a fantastic job, and her voice is. Her and Cynthia. Realistically, are incredible.
So I think this is where my opinion diverges from other people. So I thought Ariana sounded great. I think her performance is very subdued.
Oh, interesting.
I think she's the most subdued Glinda I've ever seen. We both have seen the stage show 8 times between each other. I've seen it more. I've seen it about 7 times.
I've only seen it once. Yeah.
But so I've seen many Glindas, plus the bootlegs and stuff.
Can't forget the bootlegs.
She was very subdued. To your point, Matt, earlier, and this is a larger conversation that Gia and I have been having about Glinda, about how really she's very self-absorbed, which is obviously clear from the story, but like more self-absorbed and ambitious and self-serving than you think until you dive deeper into the script and stuff and the songs. But I think, I don't know, like, I felt like with Ariana's faces, like her acting, it kind of reminded me a lot of when Russell Crowe played Javert.
Les Mis. Wow.
Yeah. I know. She felt very stiff to me.
That's interesting. Coming from a person, obviously you've seen the stage production 7 times, so I feel like you have enough to kind of, obviously, to warrant your opinion. You have enough to gravitate toward, and to you have enough to like you can compare it to, as opposed to like most of like Ernesto's seen it twice, I've seen it once, Gia's seen it once, and so that's an interesting comparison that you have. That you're like this Glinda, maybe not so much.
It's like things are different for screen, but like it just like Glinda's the most uninhibited, most popular students or whatever. They're very inhibited. They very like, oh, I'm gonna be like, I'm not gonna stand out. I'm gonna let people come to me. But like Glinda on stage, she's she's like squeaky. She squeaks. She literally squeaks.
She's a pick-me girl.
I think also not as I don't think that's her primary thing. I think she becomes more pick-me in Act 2.
Yeah.
And what's gonna be Part 2.
Right.
And I think that's me and Gia have been talking about how Glinda sings this beautiful song in Act 2 called Thank Goodness.
One of my favorites.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Spoiler alert. Not gonna but she like that's where Glinda starts to doubt herself.
Yes, but absolutely.
I think like Gia mentioned this earlier. Glinda flip-flops like 5 times during Flying Gravity. And Ariana Grande just gave this interview about how
on Las
Culturistas, about how when you're with someone, either a partner, girlfriend, boyfriend, friend, whatever, and you suddenly have a divergence of lifestyle choices, whatever, sometimes you have to part ways with them. And she's talking about how Glinda and Elphaba had a divergence of opinion and divergence of lifestyle. And I love you, but this is just not for me. But the way Ariana's talking about it, it's like, yeah, Elphaba, you have a lifestyle choice of saving the world, and I have a lifestyle choice of becoming the next mayor of Oz, and I have a lifestyle choice of becoming really ambitious, and I love you. And you're going to save the world. I'm going to further my career. And I don't know, it's just like I've never thought about it until Gia brought it up, and now that I think about it, I've never really liked the character of Glinda.
I think
Here's where, okay, and this is a bit kind of a bold statement. There is virtually no book of the Broadway show.
The Broadway show has
There's
zero
really,
book.
yeah.
Winnie Holtzman, love you, girl. You're amazing. You have really like braverisms.
Yeah. What is written is fantastic.
But it's not enough.
But it's not enough
Not
to
nearly
really understand the intentions behind everything, in my opinion. And
I agree.
Yeah. So, and with well, also I want to touch on what everything else you guys were saying. Like, but what I love about the movie is that it's everything that I wanted the movie version to be, and including the practical sets. And with Popular in particular, when Ariana does like this thing, like she leans on the thing and she this little kick.
Thank you for the demonstration.
And Wizard and I, when Elphaba is like she's like going like this on the staircase, like you don't get that on stage.
And when she jumps in the field.
Yes, and she does her Sound of Music spin, like that's what shows the emotion. Now with Ariana, for Noah Mourns the Wicked, you can see the guilt.
Yes.
You can see how awful she feels.
That's where I don't know, because like I couldn't tell, because then she lights the thing on fire.
But that could mean different things.
I feel like that means
that's
completely different things for sure.
It seems like to me it seems like she is conflicted as a person, because she's being presented like, well, I love Elphaba, but I also like the wizard is like, he's the wizard, like he runs shit around here. So if I want to be somebody, I kind of need to do what he says. And like before Elphaba, this was like really like my life's thing. So she's kind of pulled back and forth, right, trying to honor this love and friendship she has for Elphaba, but also like trying to further her own needs. And in this moment in Act 1, like Jon 2 said in a bunch of I was reading the interview he did with Variety. He was saying that, part 1 or Act 1 essentially is about choices, and part 2 is about all the consequences of those choices. And I think, but we see, since the beginning of the show is technically the end of the show of when she dies, we're seeing Glinda being faced with those consequences. Like she has to, regardless of how she feels about it, she's living with this guilt, and she's like already on this train of like, well, I've already like denounced her, might as well light this shit on fire. And then Matt, you brought it up, like you see that in her face when she's singing that song, that she is conflicted with this guilt that she has for Elphaba, because she loves her and she wants the best for her, but she also is now on this train of like, she's evil, she is wicked, and I have to be against her.
Yeah, and obviously we'll get more details about it in the second part.
Yeah, but that's
we obviously
like, should Ariana win the Oscar for this one or for part 2?
Well, that was the whole
I think it's part 2. I think Cynthia part 1, Ariana part 2.
That's the whole thing about Lord of the Rings. None of them won anything until
the last. Yeah.
See, but I think they both. But I think they both deserve for the end for part 2, because that's like the pinnacle of their show. That's like the pinnacle of their story. I mean, Defying Gravity is obviously the pinnacle for Cynthia Erivo for Elphaba. So it could be said she could get it for part 1 and not for part 2. But I mean, thank goodness, As Long As You're Mine. There's so many other bigger moments that happen in Act 2.
Yeah, I feel like at least with maybe Ariana Grande, Anam might be there. It depends what she's up against, to see as far as a win goes. But I really feel this in my opinion. The last time that I was this sure was when Robert Downey Jr. was in Oppenheimer, and I was like, I saw his performance, like that man's gonna win an Oscar, and he did. And so like,
definitely.
at this point now I'm looking at Ariana Grande as like, so far out of all the movies I've seen so far, this is the first one I'm like, I don't know. This one has a chance because I'm loving what I'm seeing. But Ernesto, you actually make a great point, and a scene I want to talk about: Defying Gravity. That is the showstopper. That is the end of the film. Like, Defying Gravity is one of the most well-known songs that's attached to Wicked, and I feel like that they took their time with this song. It felt very elongated, but also to a dramatic effect when we see it, unfold, especially when she's falling and she sees a reflection of her younger self, and she knows that this is me, that young girl in the reflection, that is me. And then exactly. And then she shoots up, and then she belts it. And now, like, to me, I didn't cry. I know a lot of people were very emotional with certain scenes of the movie, but for me, I definitely had chills when she rose up and she was just like, "No, wizard, get out of here!" And like, to me, that was probably like a very exciting way to end the movie, and to the point where I'm like, "Damn, I know I just sat here for 2.5 hours, but I just want to see the rest of it now. Like, why we got to stop right here?" Like, Ernesto, what do you think about the end?
Well, so at first I was kind of put off because as soon as the song comes on in my head, I'm like, oh, this is it, and then I'm in the mode for a much like faster song, like, because it's a little bit of a faster song in the stage production, but I think it works for the film because it needed. He's in the same Variety article. John Chu talks about that this was a hard decision for him to slow the song down and to put this like almost like mid break in the middle of the song, because we're building to the end of this movie, but it's also it needs to feel like a climactic ending. And in the movie, it plays out. I think it plays out well as a moment, but as when you listen back to it as a song, I think the stage production version of the song plays better on a re-listen. But I think I loved it. I thought it was great. That's the only time that I teared up is when she's falling and she's like coming to the realization of her inner self, of being who she really is and not going against the grain of the world to become, and then taking the mantle as the Wicked Witch, as everybody deems her as. Like, if you want me to be the witch, I'll be the witch. And then she flies up, and then how vast that cape thing. It made me think of like Superman in Man of Steel when he's covering the sun. Like, it's just such a grand moment. And like, let's not forget, people, she is on a blue screen, but she's literally in the sky. Like, she's in the air, flying, singing during this moment. Like, that in itself should be appreciated.
Absolutely.
And they actually changed one of the musical intervals when she goes, "It's me."
Yes.
So in the show, in the stage production, she goes, "It's me." It's the same note, but she jumps up the octave, and that kind of is like really cool because she's like, not only is she flying up into the sky, like that, the note is flying up also. So that's kind of a cool thing. Shout out to Stephen Aremus. Musical arranger, also musical supervisor of Wicked Worldwide. Either that was just a cool riff that Cynthia did, or he was like, okay, we got to do this. So
for this, it serves. But see, and that goes back to what you were saying before of how the songs serve narrative purpose. There's a narrative purpose for that note to go up because you're talking about her literally being flown through the sky. So it's just another piece of the puzzle that just elevates the story to the next stage.
Yeah.
And also to something, to one of your points, Ernesto, all of the songs were slowed down.
Yeah. The one I didn't really care for being slowed down because it's my favorite number in the stage production was Dancing Through Life. I think Dancing Through Life is a much better as a stage because it's a huge ensemble number, and it is in this one, but it's more broken up because you're
It's
right,
so
because you're in the library.
It's like a 15
but that's what I mean, and you're going back to these different moments. Whereas when you're on stage, like everybody's still on stage more or less, it still feels like a bigger number. It's just broken up. It feels different in the movie than it does in the show.
And so, if you listen to the original cast recording, and then you like watch a bootleg or you see the show now, they just in Jersey Boys too. Like when a show has been running for over 5 years. The show it's 5 years later. The world is faster than it was when the show opened, so they're constantly speeding things up. If you so somewhere online, someone recorded the soundboard at one of the out of town sit downs of Wicked. I think like the LA production back in like 2010 or something. They recorded it, muted the vocals, tracked it, and like put it online. So we have it. And we have the whole show, just instrumentals. And it's not like, YouTube karaoke tracks. And you listen to it, and oh my God, like we were listening to the cast recording Wizard and I with Idina Menzel, and it was so slow.
Really?
Oh my God. So slow. And because if you listen to the show now, if you watch a bootleg or you go see it, it's sped up. And I was thinking about this, like, in like 10 years, like, it's gonna be so fucking fast.
Yep.
Like, and you won't even bat an eye. Like, right now the tempo of The Wizard and I is how does The Wizard and I go again?
When I meet the wizard, my whole life has changed.
So it once I meet the wizard, once I prove my worth, and when you meet the wizard, what I waited for. But when you get to like 10 years from now, once I meet the wizard,
my worth. Yeah.
It's gonna be like Motion City soundtrack or fucking, I don't know. That's what we're gonna end up with in 10 years, and it's so interesting that they slowed down the tempos, because the movie could have easily been 10 minutes, 15 minutes shorter if they had kept the show tempos as.
Yeah, you make a good point, because I did feel that the movie was just a little bit too long, and I know this was just an act one, it was a part one, but I just felt like it's like especially when we get to like sentimental. I'm a sentimental man, and I was like, all right,
we get it. You're kooky.
We get it. It's like at this point, I'm waiting for Defying Gravity. I know we're at the end of the movie now. It's like we're taking our time with this, and like that song's not one of my favorites. I also thought that like
everyone skips it.
Yeah.
Everyone skips it.
And I feel like also like in that scene when they're like, okay, well, we're trying to have this connective road building. What color should I make it? It's like, come on.
Blue or green? You know the road's gonna be yellow. Get the shit out of here.
We all know color.
Okay, you're gonna have green grass on a green road? Get the fuck out of here.
We all know what the movie is, all right?
Let's play with colors.
I
just says
Get out of here.
I thought he was an inspiration. He just like
it's Jack.
If we talk about Jeff and Michelle for a second. So I'm sorry. Okay. So now I thought he was just so charming, and he reeled you in, and then the way it's just such an utter betrayal, and more betrayals that are going to happen in part 2. No spoilers, but he was just so sweet and so amazing, and then it's so funny, like Michelle Yeoh, I couldn't take her seriously. It was kind of like Tom Cruise in Rock of Ages, where no one could take him seriously. Like hearing Oscar-winning Michelle Yeoh saying braverism and congratulations. Like, she committed to it. God bless her. She was amazing. But I just couldn't take her seriously.
I will agree with you that she was. Oh, you okay?
Yeah.
Sorry.
I will say that yes, there was a sense of like she was the odd person out in the movie, and she had a very small singing role, and the rest she kind of was like, I think once we got to the end when she's like telling the monkeys to go after them, it's like I feel like that's when she's more into the role, but toward the beginning I didn't really feel that so much. But speaking of characters, I couldn't be remiss without talking about our cameos. There's so many cameos in this movie, but the biggest one obviously is One Short Day, and we have
Kristen Chenoweth and Idina Menzel.
Thank you very much. And also, I think the guy who first played Fiyero, right, was in there as well, if I'm not mistaken. He was the one that introduced.
Steven Schwartz was in there too. He's the one who says the wizard will see you now.
Yes, yeah, I knew that.
Him?
Oh shit!
You didn't even catch that. That's terrible.
Was Norbert Leo Butz in this movie?
If that's the first person who played Fiyero, then maybe. I don't. I could be wrong. There was somebody who introduced the Idina Menzel and Kristen Chenoweth.
They seem like a younger person. They were very tall. Norbert Leo Butz was tall, but now is very short. He has shrunk over the years.
So maybe he played a version of Fiyero, maybe not the first.
Okay.
Because that was the sense I got.
I mean,
he had a large part. He was introducing the lore behind the thing before Idina and Kristen came in. He was.
Oh, his name is Christopher something or Michael something.
Yeah, I wouldn't even know what to look for if I was trying to get the. Oh, the narrator, Michael McCory Rose is his name.
Oh yeah, I don't know who he is.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe I'm projecting, but he's credited as the Wiz-O-Mania narrator.
Yeah.
To me, it felt like that he's I feel like we lingered on him just a little bit too long, just to feel like you were somebody. But I love Idina Menzel and Kristen Chenoweth role in this movie as kind of the ones that are speaking the word of Oz, and especially when Idina Menzel, she couldn't help herself.
Yeah.
Exactly. Literally, it was kind of like an eye roll moment.
An eye roll
At the same time,
moment.
I was like,
okay, we get it.
Honestly, I just realized this now. That was because no one talks about that there's any new songs in this movie. They talk about there's gonna be 2 new songs in part 2. So I had a feeling, and I think it was just confirmed, Steven Schwartz wrote this section a million years ago for some workshop of Wicked. Also, I just saw a couple months ago, I think I have it downloaded on my phone, a reading for an early workshop of Wicked.
Wow.
The cast that was in this was insane. But so I think this was from an early thing where before it got cut for time or whatever, they had, because the only part that remains in the show is hurry up, we're gonna be late for Wizamania. Then who's the mage? Who's major? Itinerary is making all us merrier. So but then this whole thing, I feel like Steven wrote it. It got cut. He never saw it again, and now he puts it back in because technically because they didn't say that this was gonna be new.
Right.
So that's really, really cool.
And you know what's crazy too? So I know there's something that he wants now to put in the stage production, but who knows? But when he was talking with Ariana about making Popular more poppy, and she's like, absolutely not. She's like, it has to stay.
She was right.
People forget that she did the Popular song with Mika. There's an artist named Mika. It's kind of like a Frankie Valli type where he sings falsetto really high. And they did this song called Popular Song, which it is popular, and they did it as a duet. And so I feel like he was like, "Hey, you want to do a little bit of that in this?" Yeah. So she was like, "No, I already did that."
Right.
Yeah, we're good here. But yeah, I think I think this was a good cameo to that paid homage to what the roles that they, for them to originate the roles back in Broadway. And it was kind of just a fun nod to all the Broadway nerds who can kind of catch that. And also I just loved it when I think Ariana Grande was about to start singing and Kristen Chenoweth just covered her mouth. It's like, no,
yeah.
This is my line. This isn't yours. And kind of this is our time. You had your moments. This is for us now. And to me, I just thought it was just a great nod that they put in there. Just a fun scene to watch in the movie, and really there were just so many moments where this movie was just fun to watch. People who have gone back, Ernesto, you've seen this movie twice now, and And how does it feel to rewatch it again? Did you feel like you were just like rehashing the same? Like, did you enjoy it the second
100%.
time more?
I enjoyed it more the second time than the first time. This is what I mean. Like, there's just something so captivating about the story. So I sat there for over 5 hours watching this content, and I walked out the second time, I said, I'd go see that again. I would go sit there for another 2 hours and 40 minutes to watch just the part one of this story again. That, to me, that is how good it is.
That's how we feel about the stage production
I agree.
too. I've seen it 7
I'd go see. I would pay to go see it again, 100%.
Yeah. Well, with the story, and since you asked that question earlier, Matt, like what is so captivating about the story? And it's amazing. But I think because there's so much subliminal messaging in it too, and it's the double entendres, right? Like, well, with the stage production and No One Mourns the Wicked, when Glinda, like when she says like and goodness knows the wicked's lives are lonely. She's wicked too. She's the wicked witch. She's
talking about herself.
And she's the good witch.
Well, no, but she's still wicked.
But she knows. But she knows that she's wicked.
Okay.
But she's still a witch, right? And
no, I know, but I think witch. I think witch in this witch in the context of
the show.
No. I think because witch, I think in the context of anything is just like a female. Person who's
but still like wicked, like at least in the Wizard of Oz, she's the wicked witch of the north.
The wicked witch of the west. No, in the Wizard of Oz, she's the good witch of the north.
I always thought she was the wicked.
I think in this context, she knows that she's wicked.
The word witch has been like what's the word? It's just been associated with bad.
Okay.
But I think like shows like Agatha All Along and shows like WandaVision and Harry Potter, like Hermione's a witch, Harry's a wizard, Ron is a wizard, So
an explainer for somebody who has powers.
But you were saying this earlier today or yesterday is that like that Glinda, it's kind of like she is also like it's kind of like
she's saying it about
might
herself.
Be projecting.
Yes.
Yeah.
The wicked lies,
which is cool.
I feel wicked.
Yes.
Right. And you're stuck with the leadership, right? And I remember growing up, in high school, we analyzed the Wizard of Oz and how the Emerald City, it's all about money. Like it's green, it's money, and like the president is the wizard. And,
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, it's about the corruption of the world.
Cool.
And like, granted, and plus with the friendship, and of course, like as a woman, like I think like stories about women are always going to be interesting and nuanced, and you're seeing these two polar opposite girls, but they are similar in certain ways, but they do just go about it very differently, but of course, but that's separate from Dorothy and everything like from that part of it. But it's just about wanting something bigger for yourself, and I think that's and everyone's trying to convince each other that they're at this certain level. And what was so interesting with Cynthia, and in so many interviews, she talks about how she wanted her alphabet to be grounded. Like she started off, she's like, "This is me. Like I'm green. I wasn't born." What are the three things she said? She said,
"No, I've always looked like this. I didn't eat grass as a kid."
Right.
And yeah.
And so when she came in, she's just like she knew who she was. But of course, in The Wizard and I, when she says like if the wizard's gonna like degreenify you, she's like, of course, like I want to be degreenified. But she accepted it. And then and literally like she has to find her way to fly. Like she started grounded and then she went up that way.
And I think
that performance was interesting.
Absolutely.
And you don't get that in The Wizard of Oz. So I think that's what
I think I like that because like in the stage production she starts out like a fucking firecracker. No, I didn't do this. I didn't. Like she's just automatically angry.
Right.
So that's like I think the moment.
Well, that's why I think Ariana being subdued works. Yes. Because you have to have that contract.
But then they're both subdued.
No, I don't think so. I think
Cynthia wasn't subdued. I wouldn't say that she was subdued. She was very. I mean, she was aggressive. I mean, but it was more of like a controlled aggression.
More subdued than the stage alphabets. Much more subdued.
Yeah. I do think
And I
though that
think-
is just an acting for screen
Yes.
thing because I
Okay.
saw so much of it in her face.
Right.
Right,
Right, but he just didn't see it.
You don't have
Yeah,
to
I just
hourly
didn't
project
see it.
because you're not on. You don't have to project like you do on stage. Like a lot of when the camera's out up close to you, it translates differently.
Right.
But that's why, like, I did, like, I don't know, it was just different because I agree with you how, like, Cynthia was, like, she was a more grounded alphabet, and I agree with that. And because we were just watching a bootleg of the show, and it really is true. But I think that's how they're directed on stage. Like the moment in the movie where her and Fierro rescue the cub and they're in the forest and she's going on and on and on and on, and Fierro's like, "Do you ever let anyone talk?"
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a more earned moment in the movie, I feel like,
Yes.
than the show.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and it's crazy because like I do feel that both of these roles, like they're, it's like I feel like in the stage production there was a moment where you might have hated is a strong word, but might have disliked one or the other at certain points of the stage production, and I feel like that in the movie I never really hated either one of them. I feel like they were just coming from a complicated place. Obviously, Glinda was definitely getting her way in Shiz, but like you can see the complexities within both the performances of Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande, where I feel like by the end we get to, Defying Gravity was more of a touching moment of them kind of making, as Ernesto said, making choices on where they want to be at this particular point. And I feel like it's going to be interesting to see how these characters translate over into part two when we see those choices now being, you're seeing the reactions from their choices, what happens from it.
I have to say, I hope the two songs that are written are not replacing anyone's, because they've done that. Little Mermaid, they wrote in the Little Mermaid Live, they wrote this new song. They wrote two new songs, one for the prince and one for Ariel, and they wrote songs from the musical. They wrote a new song for the prince about like, oh, I heard her voice, and the song because Troy Bolton voice first. Drew Seeley, he does this pop.
Also in Jersey.
Yeah, also Jersey Boys. Yeah. He does this pop version of the song from the musical called Her Voice. And it's such a good song, and they just replaced it, and they replaced one of the radio songs with another song. So I just hope, if we're talking about our hopes, I just brought it up. It's not if we're talking because I'm just bringing it up. I'm sorry, but I hope that these two new songs in part two, because when a composer, no matter how engrossed they are in that world, they created it, whatever, songs are never going to sound exactly the same as when they first wrote them.
Sure.
Alan Menken is a complete example of that. When he writes new songs for his stuff, they don't hit as well. They don't match. And so, and if we're talking about Stephen Schwartz and Alan Menken, I don't think, because they both wrote The Hunchback of Notre Dame, I don't think you could have gotten the darkness of it without Stephen Schwartz. I think he really was because he wrote all the music for The Prince of Egypt and Joseph in the Dreams. Those songs and movies were very dark. So he's really good at that. So I really hope that the songs that he's written do not replace the ones that he wrote for the musical. And if they do, I do hope that they match the tone. Yeah. Because part one set a huge precedent. It set the bar so high.
It did.
We have to keep.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with what you're saying here. And I feel like that because Jon M decided to split these two movies into, the split into two parts, and the fact that we didn't even take away any songs from the first act, I feel like that we are just adding to the second act. And the second act is a much darker act than the first one. So I feel like that, to your point, I don't think he would actually change the music. But before we wrap things up here, I do want to talk about the box office, because that is something that is... I got you. Thank you. That is something that is definitely worth mentioning, and to say the least, it defied gravity as far as the box office numbers are concerned. So this is a fun fact. This is the first non-Disney musical to gross over $100 million domestically in opening weekend, which is crazy to think about that no other musical has been able to do that. The movie
Showman, huh?
No.
No, not even The Greatest Showman. No, Greatest Showman actually was a slow burn for the movie.
Yeah.
But it definitely gained popularity after the weeks came out. But Wicked opened $212.5 million, and at the time it was the third biggest opening of the year until Moana 2 came out literally a week later and debuted with $139 million. So now Wicked is now the fourth highest grossing opening of all time. I'm sorry, not all the time, of 2024. At the time of this recording, the movie has made 275 million domestically, 97 million international, with a grand total of 372.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Almost
373 million. Yeah. Okay, so 372 million, which is crazy to think about because when you look at the international numbers, it hasn't even reached over $100 million yet. And so you can tell the praise, the popularity of this film is here in the U.S. It's not really international. I feel like it's hurting its box office numbers because it's not on a wide world scope yet. But I do feel like that given the positive word of mouth, maybe more people might go watch it to boost up the international numbers. But as of right now, it's not being as popular as it was, like say other movies.
Because there have been so many, not even just international productions of Wicked, translations, Mexico, Netherlands, Wilhelmine Verkuyk, one of the biggest alphabas ever. She started in the Netherlands. She played it in London. She played it on Broadway. She's like one of the most famous alphabas. There have been like translations of the show. So that's so surprising to me that it is not doing well. That is not reaching, not doing well, but it's not at that level yet internationally.
Yeah.
Exactly. And from there, easily they've made another 100 to 150 million dollars on a marketing budget. If you have not seen Wicked anywhere on your screen, at the grocery store, if you go to a Target, I mean I work at Universal, so they have the Universal the Wicked experience there. It's like this movie was marketed everywhere, and they wanted you to know this movie exists. So this marketing budget is insane. And I think I read an article that this movie cost, between the two movies, they had a budget of $350 million. So easily I can just assume that you're at $500 million including the marketing on the both movies. And we are on a slow incline to that. So I'm very curious as we come to part 2, will the positive word of mouth from the first one, as it continues to climb the box office, as well as next year, will it become a $1 billion movie? I guess that's left to be determined. But I don't think part 1's going to be a $1 billion movie. I'm curious if
I don't know, Matt. We have the sing-along that's coming out. We have the sing-along that's coming out during Christmas. So you're going to get everybody who's seeing multiple screenings now, and people who are like, I'd go see it for the sing-along, because now you've already seen the movie. Now you're going for a communal experience for everybody to sing along in the theater, to treat it like a Taylor Swift concert. So I don't know. I think before the end of the year, it is possible for this movie to cross $1 billion.
Well,
I don't know. I mean,
almost recouped then.
Yeah, just on half.
Yes,
I mean, this is just part 1. We haven't even cracked part 2.
Right.
And who knows? And considering how crazy this marketing has been, as big as this movie is, I can only imagine what's going to happen next year for part 2.
That's what
I agree.
I am so. I have no idea how they're going to market part 2. This is the first time in movie musical history that there's been a part 2. Right.
And I mean, honestly, when you think about the marketing of this movie in particular, Defying Gravity was all over the trailers.
Yes.
Like they were basically showing you the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Throughout all of
That's
the marketing.
true.
So like they know, like that didn't matter. No one cared that you were watching the end of the movie in the trailer. They cared about the show-stopping moment of the film. And anyone who's watched the musical, that's the end of the first act. So like we know that this was the end. So I'm really curious to be like, how much are you going to promote to get people back into the theaters to watch part 2? I feel like they don't have to do as much of a job the second time around because everyone's already invested into this story. I feel like they can probably back up a little bit on the marketing for part 2, but who knows?
I feel like they need to. Well, here's what was great about their marketing for this, and I'm sure they took a bunch of cues from Barbie as they should have. Well, okay, because John Chu, he said that there's not going to be a Super Bowl trailer.
Exactly.
Right?
They're not doing one single thing until the teasers start.
But when teaser going to start? That's the thing. Like, it makes sense.
Begging.
February does seem too soon because, like Ernesto, like because around Christmas time for the sing-alongs. But I don't know when or how they're going to do this.
So like, I have a theory. I think because Universal's next big movie is going to be Jurassic World Rebirth. That's going to be in the summer of 2025. I feel like since Universal's obviously making part 2 of Wicked, they might want to promote Wicked after everyone else is going to see their next big blockbuster. So at the earliest, I'm thinking June of 25, we might see a teaser. Because everyone's already in the theater, and they're going to try
5 months out. I don't know. I would think we'd get a 2-minute trailer by 5 months before the film. Teaser maybe by Memorial Day. Well, they don't have anything coming out, so no, probably not.
Well, I mean, a teaser in June, maybe a full trailer by Memorial Day. No, you're back up. By Labor Day, we might get a full trailer. Because this is going to be another Thanksgiving release.
That's true.
Also, to your point about the marketing, this movie was supposed to open alongside Moana 2. And Universal made the decision to be like, nope, we're not doing that. Instead, because it was Gladiator Part 2 or Gladiator 2 the week before, and then it was Wicked. And then Disney out of nowhere announced that Moana 2 was going to be out Thanksgiving weekend. And Universal is probably like, what the fuck are you doing, Disney? This is
damn
awesome.
it.
So then, exactly. So then Wicked or Universal decided to bump up Wicked by a week to go against the Gladiator. And to me, I think that was a really smart move that helped benefit because Universal was the company or the studio who brought out Oppenheimer, and they saw the huge success to come out of Barbenheimer. So they're like, well, let's just try this again. Let's kind of lean into it. Gladiator 2 is from Paramount Pictures. And then, now people were calling it Glicked.
Glicked or Wickadator.
Wickedator is way better. Thank you. Thank you for all being on the same page here. Because Glicked was the stupid name, and I'm gonna stand by it. Whoever said Glicked, you're wrong. It feels like the sequel to the next Adam Sandler movie. No, it's not. It's the Wickedator, and that makes the complete sense. But anyway, as we wrap up all this stuff, Gia Daveed, we'll start with you. Your final thoughts on Wicked, and we do a 5-star rating here on the show. So give us your 5-star rating. So what are your final thoughts on Wicked?
I'm gonna give it a 4.3 out of 5.
Wow.
Okay.
Oh,
Gia?
man. The same.
4.3 out of 5. Okay.
Yeah, because it really was so good. It represented the stage musical perfectly.
Yeah.
It really was the best movie adaptation of a musical in a long, long time. Mm-hmm. They did it so much justice. There's just a couple things that I thought could be better or whatever. So that's why I gave it that.
Okay. Ernesto?
So I'm going the full 5. I think that this movie I think this movie has created an experience for people to go back to theaters. Like you're seeing the online, like everybody is hooking into Wicked and how they can capitalize it, whether it's on the internet. Like I've seen so many products that are coming out that have Wicked shit labeled all over it, but it's
this shirt that you got.
Yeah, exactly. But that's what I mean. It's everywhere. But it's becoming an experience. And people who don't even really go to the movies are now talking about like, man, is this movie that good? Should I go see it? And the answer is yes. You should absolutely go see this movie in the theaters because it is an experience. Like, when was the last time a movie was made on this grand of a scale? I mean, you talk about the production sets, you talk about the performances. There's just so many other little things to be appreciated for what was put into for them to create this production. So for me, I mean, it's easily going to be in my top for this year. I mean, the music. I mean, the movie music has. I think it was either number 1 or 2 on the billboards. When was the last time that a movie soundtrack has made it to the Billboard 100? Like this is Barbie, but then now this is even causing a resurgence of the original Broadway cast recording to come back onto the Billboard 100. Not as high as the movie soundtrack, but both things are being appreciated just because of the release of half of this story.
Yeah. And which so when we started this podcast, I had a mental rating, and for me it was a 4.5. And that was a rating I had. And in my head, I don't want to say it out loud because I want to say like what the rating was, but mentally I was like, all right, I'm at a 4.5. I'm pretty sure Ernesto's going to give it a 5. So
you don't know me, Matthew.
So like my whole goal, at least mentally, was can Ernesto get me to
Did I get
5?
you there?
Because there are multiple times on this show where we would like, hey, you know, well, we were thinking about this movie a little bit lesser, but because of the power of conversation, we were able. I had a different rating by the end of it. And yeah, I can say that you got me to a 5.
Thank you.
Mainly because like it is a phenomenon, and I think it warrants what it's doing for the movie theater experience. Yes. And like the performances were incredible. The choreography around almost every number of this was just downright mesmerizing to see on the screen. I've listened to mainly for this podcast, but I've listened to the soundtrack 4 times, and I saw the movie on Sunday. So in the course of Sunday, including the movie watching, and then I listened to the soundtrack an additional 3 more times, so at least once a day since I've seen the movie. I think I'm enjoying the movie more as I'm listening to the soundtrack, and because I have a love for cinema, I like this version of Wicked. This is one I can easily go back to. I love the soundtrack of this. And everything about this movie, the appreciation, the attention to detail, the set designs, the performances, like I said, the choreography, the chills you get when you hear Defying Gravity, like all that stuff that you get from a Broadway performance, they did a really good job of bringing that onto the screen. And I felt this way when I saw In the Heights. And I loved In the Heights. It was one of my top movies that year. And the fact that he was able to transcend my feelings of In the Heights. It's like, I love In the Heights. And then he came out with Wicked, and he's like, In the Heights was great, but hold my beer, because Wicked's going to be even better than that. And I think he excelled at giving us a Broadway. He brought Broadway to the big screen.
John should direct all movies.
He set the bar. He set the bar for what for what movie musicals should be. It's like, forget this de-aging Ben Platt shit. This is what you're supposed to be doing. This is how you make a movie musical.
Yes.
Okay, isn't it amazing that you said that? And Spielberg, who did the West Side Story remake, is who discovered John Chu. And John totally, he blew West Side Story out of the water.
Out of the water. I'm sorry. Small rant. The fact, West Side Story. You know what? I'm not going to do it. We had a podcast for that. You can go listen to it then. I'm not going to get into it. I'm not doing it.
It was a movie. It was not.
It was a movie. Rachel Zegler was fit.
True. That's fact.
That was a movie. Rachel Zegler was amazing in that movie. Her voice, anyway, and I'm looking forward to seeing her in Snow White. And yes,
Fiona in Shrek the Musical in New Jersey at her high school.
Oh,
I think isn't that how Spielberg? I think that's how Spielberg discovered her, right? Something like that. Yeah.
Yes.
No. She
had a tape.
No, she had already finished filming. She had already finished filming West Side Story when she did.
Okay.
Oh, never.
That's crazy. But anyway, needless to say, Wicked is probably the biggest and one of our favorites of the year.
We'll definitely be talking about it for Oscar season next year.
Absolutely. There's no way this movie's not being nominated for at least one Oscar, whether it's Best Picture, Best Production Design, Actress, Supporting Actress. The list goes on and on. Adapted Screenplay.
Director, absolutely.
Best Director.
Absolutely. Yeah.
There's no way this movie's not getting nominated for something, and so I think it 100% deserves it. And we're going to be talking about this movie as we dive into our Oscar conversation. But that is our spoiler review on Wicked. Gia Daveed, thank you very much for joining us. Kind of just diving into this world and giving us your insight and all of your knowledge. I know, Daveed, no one's telling you to shut up when you're giving us nerd Broadway stuff. So thank you.
You dish it out.
Everyone cares. Everyone cares.
You're safe here.
You're safe here. Again.
Yeah, we're holding space for you here.
Hold my fingernail.
And not for anything, as great as this movie is, I think the craziness and the weirdness of them two on the press tour has just made it like just that more entertaining.
I love
it's like
it.
him holding her finger,
love it so
just
much.
randomly grabbing each other, or like somebody asks a question and they just start breaking into tears. But you know what? Theater kids are gonna theater kid. Like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
We're all theater kids at heart.
Gia Daveed, can you tell people where they can find the Silhouettes JB podcast just one more time?
Sure. Yeah. On Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcast. You can reach us at Instagram. On Instagram at Silhouettes JB Podcast _ like Gia said. Shoot us a DM if you want to know what the underscore is for. It's really specific. It's really cool. Yeah, we got some really cool stuff on there. And you guys got some really cool stuff too. Check out Box Office Bingers. That's Matt and Ernesto. We love you guys.
Thank you so much. We love you.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure. I mean, it's crazy that it's been 4 years since we had you on the show.
I know.
And it's also really nice. We've talked about this before. This podcast brings people together, so I'm glad we were able to do that, even if it's been 4 years later. If you want more from us, you can always follow us on all of our social media channels on Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok at Box Office Bingers, our X and Letterboxd page at Box Office Binger, and our Threads and Instagram page at Box Office _Bingers. Side note: there's no secret meaning behind the underscore here. Someone took Box Office.
Wouldn't let us have it,
so we put the underscore there. It wouldn't let us have it. Someone else has it, and they don't deserve it. I'm just saying, they don't deserve it. So either way, we got the underscore in ours, and that's the meaning behind that. But if you want the underscore for the Silhouettes JB podcast, go give them a message on Instagram. I'm sure they'll be glad to tell you what it is. Because now I'm curious. I'm like, now we gotta stop the show. Be like, what does this underscore mean? Or you know what? Actually, I'll do what you said. I'll message you guys on Instagram.
Yes.
We'd like to thank each and every one of you for listening to us just talk about movies. We really do appreciate it. Come back next week for more movie fun. You're not going to regret it. Another surprise movie, and probably one of the last ones we have of the year that we're kind of scheduling out the rest of 2024. So be sure to listen to that or watch it. Thank you, everyone, for giving us your time and listening to us to talk about movies. Come back next week for more movie fun. You're not going to regret it. For that, I've been your host, Matt Diaz.
Ernesto Santos. See ya.